Yeah, 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 Urko. Hey, 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 hey. Look. Yo, what's up? I go by the name of Steph Urko, and welcome to another episode of Millennium Dungeon. How's everybody doing this beautiful weekend? I had a great weekend. You know what I'm saying? Got productive, got some things done. And we have our wonderful co-host.
Imarii, aka Afro Puff.
Yeah. You can roll your eyes if you want to. You know Afro Puff's starting to stick to you. You know you love it. You love that nickname. But how's your weekend?
My weekend was great. I got a haircut. I got a curly cut, in fact,
Ooh,
and
okay.
a style. So I'm excited to
Nice.
switch it up.
Nice. It looks good. Looks good.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess let's get right into it. But before we get started, anything you want to say about this episode, Murray?
Yes, I just want to give a trigger warning. Today we're going to be talking about domestic abuse, domestic violence, various forms of abuse, and so we just want to let our viewers know what's up before you get started.
You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. So you have been warned. Let's get right into it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about domestic violence, like she said. So more specifically, we're talking about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. Now, we agreed that we're not going to go into that much deep detail into it because, like I said, this is still open investigation and we don't know all the details about it, but it's just a little snippet about it. Okay. Basically, for the last year and a half, 2 years, we've heard about Johnny Depp, famous actor in Hollywood, and his wife Amber Heard, who's a well-known actor in Hollywood, actress in Hollywood as well. They've been going to domestic violence situations at home. They've been accusing each other of them putting their hands on each other, and we've been seeing over the last year and a half where they've had recordings of each other, just like talking bad to each other, saying like, "Yeah, you're not going to do this." You're like, no one's going to believe you. And it's more on her side too, because we've heard more of her side of her being recorded of saying like, who's going to believe you, Johnny? No one's going to believe you. I've done this to you. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like her throwing things at him. She accusing him of putting his hands on her. It's been a lot of things, a lot of blame game, pointing the fingers. And a lot of people are coming to the aid of Johnny Depp because he has more evidence that's pointed against her. And we've seen in the court cases now that we've seen the bodyguard even come out to his defense saying like, "Oh yeah, she was doing this. Like yeah, she was throwing things at him." I think it was one part where she said they left fetus in the bedroom. I don't know if you heard about that, Amari.
I didn't.
Yeah. So apparently she left like fetus or shit on the bedroom. You know what I'm saying? And she said it was a prank, and she even admitted in court that yes, I did that. She also openly admitted that yeah, she thrown things at him and stuff like that, and that was her on the recording saying, "Who's going to believe you, Johnny?" and stuff like that. So for the most part, Johnny Depp was going through a lot. You know what I'm saying? And like I said before, it's this not a thing to make people pick sides because we don't know what he was doing too. But I felt like this was an important conversation for us to have because Johnny Depp has been getting a lot of crap for this for 2 years now because a lot of movies that he was supposed to be in postponed, like the Pirates of the Caribbean 4 movie was supposed to come out, that got cut. Disney has like cut a lot of ties with Johnny Depp because of these accusations that we still don't know who's true. And it's like, well, damn, y'all didn't even let him rest his case before y'all even cut him. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I'm just gonna open the floor now to get started. Amari, how do you feel about all this situation?
I think it's so sticky
Yeah,
because domestic violence is a incredibly important topic for men and women. And I think if things are being lied about on either of their stances,
yeah,
if she's lying or if he's lying, it's repugnant. It's awful because there are millions of people, not I would say thousands, if not millions of people who experience some form of domestic violence or abuse. Um, and it's not something to glorify. So right now, I know they're going through um, a libel trial. So defamation, basically, defamation of character, etc. Because as you know, Johnny Depp has lost multiple movie deals because of it. I think at this point, Amber Heard has lost movie deals as well. Um, and so it doesn't matter how much money you make, what is your social economic standing, violence, domestic abuse, sexual assault, etc., still happens. It's still very real. Um, and I hate cases like this only because it has now been put into the court of public opinion in some ways.
Mhm.
And so we're being like pit against each other almost on whose side you're taking, when regardless, abuse, domestic violence shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be tolerated, and it shouldn't matter if it's a man or a woman who is doing the abusing. It's wrong.
Right. I agree 100%. And there's two things I want to state out. But you said like now this has been put in the court of public opinion. Well, this is kind of sticky because at the same time, it's like when you're celebrities, everything you do is put into the court of public opinion. It's sad to say, especially with social media now, all it takes is one person to take a picture or record a video of your favorite celebrity, and that's going to be put on the Shade Room or Instagram or Facebook, and now it's in the court of public opinion. So it's a sticky situation because like as a celebrity, everything you do gets recorded and gets put for people to be judged. So I just want to state that. And two, my opinions about this whole situation. This is weird to say, but I'm just going to be honest. We don't cap on this show. You know what I'm saying? Um, was I saddened to hear about this whole situation? Yes. You know, Johnny Depp, he's a favorite actor of mine. You know what I'm saying? He's a big actor, a part of our childhood. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's sad to see him go through things like this. You know what I'm saying? Especially when I heard like the evidence in court with the recordings and stuff like that. It's sad to see, but am I surprised? No. You know what I'm saying? Because the truth of the matter is, when I heard about this situation, like I feel like this is a conversation that's long overdue when it comes to like domestic violence on both sides. And it's like Imarii said, you know, domestic violence is something that shouldn't be tolerated on both sides. You know what I'm saying? Like domestic violence is wrong, point blank, period. But at the same time, I feel as though when it comes to domestic violence situations, especially ones like this, it's like it's more sided where the on one is more sided for the woman's side more as the men. Because when we hear about domestic violence, the first thing that pops in a lot of people's minds is, oh, the woman getting abused. That's the first. Let's be honest. Like that's always the first thing that pops in our minds when it comes to domestic violence on situations. But now we have evidence that shows that the man, he's getting abused too. So people are like up in the air, like, well, how am I supposed to feel like this? I've never seen somebody that go through this big like Johnny Depp. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure it's a lot of other celebrities that go through this stuff because I know people going to be in the comments. Oh, that's not true because back in 1980 something. Okay, relax. You know what I'm saying? But in situations like this, it's like a lot of people don't know how to feel because at the end of the day, now we're seeing where a man is being abused, and people are like, "Well, damn, we don't know how to feel about it." Like men can really cause abuse. It's like, yes, men can be abused too when it comes to situations like this. And I feel as though a lot of people try to sweep that under the rug because as men, we're told to be strong. We're supposed to be the ones, the providers. We're supposed to be the protectors and stuff like that. So in domestic violence situations, it's like mostly in a way like they don't want to believe you. And I believe like but domestic violence is wrong on both sides. So I don't know how this is really going to stick out because at the same time it's like yeah, Johnny Depp is a big celebrity, so a lot of people are paying attention to this now because his status. But at the same time, well, what do we do about this as a problem in the whole community for hundreds and thousands of men that go through this all the time? Are we just getting mad about this because Johnny Depp's a celebrity? Or are we going to really break down like, yo, so domestic violence against men and women is wrong. We need to put our foot down. So
Right.
I guess my next question for you is why do you think we don't take this as serious as we would when it comes to like you hear about on cases of women being abused by men? Why don't you think people hold that same energy when it comes to men being abused by women?
So I think in general, domestic violence is not given the, regardless of if it's a man or a woman, often domestic violence is not um, taken as seriously as it should be because it's a lot of he said, she said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's there one person's word against another person's word. Um, and then it's about finding evidence to prove it. And we've seen cases where men have been accused of domestic violence, of abuse, and they've got it, even though it's very clear or seems to be very clear that they did it, that they get a slap on the wrist. You know, that does happen. Not every guy or person rather who is, you know, given a court trial for it gets punished. Most really don't. And so I think part of the reason why men aren't taken seriously when it comes to domestic violence is because, one, domestic violence isn't taken as seriously. It is something harder to prove, but also because of what you already said. Men are expected to be strong. They're expected to especially be stronger than the woman that they're with or the person that they're with, because, you know, there are men who are in relationships with other men or non-binary folks. So, and abuse happens in those type of relationships too. And so domestic violence for men is often viewed as, oh, he was weak. Oh, he's a punk. Oh, you know, they're not taken seriously because men's pain often isn't taken seriously.
Yeah.
What is, oh, he could have just left. He should have just bodied her and left. He could have done X, Y, Z. But people in abusive situations are often isolated from their family and friends. They often feel like they deserve whatever abuse they're receiving. And their viewpoint of getting out is very limited. As well as when you're in a domestic violence situation, it is very difficult, scary, and dangerous to leave.
Yeah.
Not easy. And I think men often don't speak about the domestic violence they've experienced because they know people aren't going to take them seriously. They're going to be the butt of jokes. It's not. So even if they leave, even if they get out of the domestic situation, it's like a closet shame rather than one where it can be talked about. And it's not that, you know, women who experience domestic violence, experience abuse, don't also have that shame, but we are a little more comfortable with them talking about it, talking about their abuse than men.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You know, it's funny. I was having a conversation about this earlier in the week with a friend of mine, and we was talking about this situation about the whole domestic violence thing, and we were saying, like, even though, remember, like, as kids, as boys, we're taught to, like, us be taught, like, you should never hit a girl and stuff like that. You should never put your hands on one. And it's like we're taught to be chivalrous and be gentlemen. Like, you should do this for a girl. You should treat her like a lady and stuff. And no matter how mad she is or how she treats you, you should never put your hands on her and treat her like a queen or a princess. You know, something that's been instilled in a lot of young men and stuff like that. But then I think about the opposite. It's like, well, is that same like that same like method like taught to a lot of women as far as when they're little girls and say, don't put your hands on no man? Because I remember, like, when I was younger and stuff like that, I remember having cousins and stuff, or they had their parents saying, like, yo, if a boy tests you or he say something slick, then you better beat him up. If on that playground or something like that, you better beat him up. And it's like a lot of these girls like be like, well, they had this like mindset, well, you saying I can hit a boy and I don't have to worry about him hitting me back. And I feel like that kind of mindset, even though you're young and you're impressionable and you don't really know better like that, you grow up and that kind of mindset kind of sticks with you, saying like, well, I know I'm gonna put my hands on him if I get mad enough. You know what I'm saying? I know he's not gonna do anything back. And that's the wrong mindset to kind of go into, because when you think about it, one, you don't know how people are. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got a limit. You can say what you want to, but everybody got that one button you shouldn't put on press, and they're gonna go crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like the idea of saying like, well, I only hit him one time. That was only the one time. It's like it don't matter. You get what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, you don't know how people are going to react. And two, when it comes to like thing like you said before about like women like having different support groups and stuff to like actually talk about like, okay, I can be able to talk about this domestic violence or my abuse and stuff. There are like tons of like support groups for women where they can feel comfortable to be like, it's okay, we'll help you through this. You know what I'm saying? You don't have you deserve better. But it's like you said before, with men, we really don't have that same like leisure to be able to do that, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, because women often, when they experience, or in the past rather, women who have experienced things like abuse, they slowly came together, created organizations to help other women who are experiencing whatever trauma.
Yeah.
And then they were able to use collective power to bring those type of issues up legislature wise, to make certain things illegal. Hitting your wife has not always been illegal. Just like, for example,
that's true.
Raping your wife was legal. Having sex with your wife and she has not consented to it was legal. It's not now in the United States, but other places in the world, it still is. And so I think if men, a lot of the issues, men, because they aren't talking about the issues amongst other men and seeing how common it is amongst other men, they're not creating those organizations. Now, that being said, there are organizations that are for people regardless of their gender, and then there are specific ones, groups for just women, groups for just transgender people, groups for just men, groups for just non-binary, et cetera, et cetera. They do exist. They just aren't always talked about and elevated in the way that they should be, in my opinion. Because abuse, domestic, sexual, physical, emotional, whatever, regardless, is wrong. But that kind of leads me to a question I have is, why do you think violence is so against one another, regardless, is so prominent and almost acceptable in our culture?
So why is this so acceptable in our culture? And when you say our culture, are you talking about race as far as like Western culture?
Western.
That's just something. Violence and getting violence has always been a form of getting what we want in America. I think that's
power.
Part of the reason. Exactly. Think about how we got America. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Through violence. So I feel like that's something that we leaned on as our biggest weapon to get things done. Violence. Why you think so much money gets funded into war and stuff like that? Because they know that's our biggest weapon to get things done. So when it comes to violence, I feel like we lean on that as the option for everything. And I feel like that kind of just lingered on into certain other things or aspects in our lives. Like, how do I put this? You know how when you have an ice cream cone and like if you just let it sit, like the ice cream cone melts over the cone and it just goes onto the hands and then it goes onto the floor and then goes to the counter. You know what I'm saying? Right. I feel like that kind of culture or that mindset has lingered on to different aspects. And one of them aspects that we're talking about now is relationships. And it's like you said before, I feel like back in the day, domestic violence was seen as normal and legal. And because you think about it, back in the 40s and 30s and stuff like that, like when women didn't really have any jobs or anything, or they couldn't even just go and seek independence on their own, that was something she just had to accept. Because at the end of the day, if a dude was beating on her, he was seen as the breadwinner. So where was she going to go?
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it was endorsed often by religion. I know the Christian church, depending on who your priest or your pastor was, it was viewed as if you couldn't control your husband, may he be an alcoholic or may he be physically abusive towards you or your children or both, it was viewed as you had a moral lacking. Yeah. You need to change yourself so you don't bother him as much, so you're not stressing him out as much. You need to be his peace in some way so that he isn't doing these things to you. So if it's blame, it was victim blaming.
Yeah.
And I think we have a culture of victim blaming, and that's also why men don't report their abuse, regardless of what type of abuse, as much, because they know it's going to be looked back at as, well, you deserved it because you couldn't control your woman.
Yeah. That was something I was going to say too. A lot of men like this is sad to say, but a lot of men don't report stuff like that because they're embarrassed to talk about it amongst their peers because they're like, well, damn, what's going on with your chick, man? You can't control her at home, and made the butt of jokes, but even by men and women. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like a lot of men, when it comes to domestic violence, I feel like we're taught to like suck it in and like I don't know, just stick it out for the long run or try to control it ourselves because at the end of the day, if we're seen as the man or the protector of the house, we feel as though nobody's going to believe that a woman is going to abuse us. Like even if a dude goes on to work the next day with a black eye or a scratch on his face and stuff like that, and says what happened to you, and he actually tells the truth, the first question that people are going to say is, "Well, damn man, what you do?" Or "Damn man, you was cheating, was you?" You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Whereas a woman does that, not to say women's don't get accused of well, what you do, girl. Not to say that doesn't happen, but it's more so like, oh my God, come here, let me help you, or here's a number, you can call me anytime, or why you didn't leave him. You get what I'm saying? It's
Right.
always like people are going to come to her support versus a man is more so it's like you had to do something wrong, man, for your girl to be beating on you like that. Come on, be honest, what you do. And that's not even always the case. It's just some people are just with the wrong people, and some people don't know how to control their emotions, and like it turns
Right.
to violence.
Right. Well, and abusers do not typically come off as abusers to the general public because
True.
that's how they're able to get away with the abuse. You know, they aren't just of course I can't think of the word, but they're not just like brainwashing you to feel like you only can rely on them and need them. They also are doing that to the people around them. So they're charismatic, they're funny, they're kind, they give money to charity, they come off as upstanding people because that's a form of power and control as well. They're controlling the public image that people have about them. So that way, once they're home beating their partner, no one's going to believe them.
Yeah. Which is
You
sad.
know, they don't come off as people who are going to do harm. Because most people are not going to get into a relationship with somebody who they know is going to isolate them from their friends, isolate them from their family, make them feel worthless, make them feel helpless, blame them for simple and small acts. So, oh, I hit you last night because my dinner was cold.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, well, if you just didn't do this, then I wouldn't have to do this. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to put your hands on someone. You do not have to yell at somebody. But I think most people are not emotionally mature. Most people don't have high emotional intelligence. And that's not me saying most people are abusive, but I'm saying most people, when we experience something that makes us upset or uncomfortable or anger, our reaction is often yelling or something that isn't necessarily healthy for the situation. It's human, but not healthy. And then some people take that to a higher extreme and help that to garner power.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not good to yell at your partner, but we do it. Hopefully you're not doing it to the point where it is literally abuse, where every day you're having screaming matches and you're arguing about things that are trivial. But we all lose our cool because we aren't taught how to emotionally regulate a lot of the time and how to problem solve our way out of situations that upset us.
Right.
And how to communicate, hey, you know what? I'm in a heightened emotional state right now. I can't talk about this right now. We feel like we have to deal with the issue right now. And if it's not dealt with right now, then what's the point? Which leads us to arguments that could wait for later in ways that we aren't being productive partners. And that's not to take away from the whole abuse aspect, but most of us could probably be doing better.
Thanks.
So it's easy to almost see the slippery slope of how abuse happens in some ways. Yes, it's about power, but also these people typically, while intelligent, because it's manipulation. You're manipulating your partner, you're manipulating the outer world to have a certain viewpoint about you. But also, they probably aren't very emotionally mature. And sometimes, not always, they've also experienced trauma, which never makes it okay. Just because you've gone through something in your life that is negative and traumatic and bad does not give you the right to force other people to experience that same trauma or even traumas of different forms. Just because you had a situation does not mean that, just because your mom was abusive towards you does not mean that you now get to abuse your children or your partner, etc. That's not okay. But it is often the case. So it's one of those things where it explains it, but it does not make it okay,
I get what you're saying. I 100% agree. And I'm glad you said a certain word that I forgot to say, trauma. Because the thing about this whole Johnny Depp situation too, because like it's so interesting because it can go deeper into that, because the way my mind is, I like to look at things in a deeper level. And one of the deeper levels I looked at is through race, because this is going to be bad to say, but I'm just going to say it. Like, I think one of the reasons why I wasn't really shocked at this whole Johnny Depp situation is because I feel as though, like, in the Black community, I feel like this kind of thing with shouting at each other when it comes to solving problems, or it turned into abuse, it's become normalized. Like, even if you look at things in the media and stuff, like where you look at movies, like you seen Baby Boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jody and Yvette was toxic. You see how they was yelling outside, "Fuck you and these neighbors, I hate you." That's seen as norm. I remember, like, growing up, if I went to my aunt's house or I had neighbors of my own, they were screaming and shouting at each other, throwing things at each other. That was just seen as, oh, they just going at it. They always like this, just let it cool down and stuff like that. You would hear things breaking and stuff. I'll tell you a quick story. One time, me and my dad, right? I would think I was like 13, 14. We went to a cookout for one of his friends at work, and it was a great cookout. Everybody was chilling. Then me and some other guy and my dad, we went on the porch and stuff. And the neighbors next door, apparently, the dude went about to see the baby and stuff like that. And the baby mom was like, "Yo, you will never see your child. Let me see my son. Let me see my son," and stuff like that. And it was turned to a big shouting match for like 7 whole minutes and stuff like that. And then it was a bottle on the porch, on the table on the porch. She grabbed the bottle, ran down the little steps, and hit him in the head with the glass bottle, banging him. And she didn't stop until the sister came and pulled her back off him. And like they was all fighting and crying. But 10 minutes later, everything cooled down. Everybody was just chilling. And then the neighbors that was on the porch, or me and my dad and stuff like that, yeah, you should have seen them 2 weeks ago. That's literally what they said.
Oh, wow.
As if that was normal, as if that just attacking somebody with a bottle was seen as, it is what it is. That's how we express ourselves.
Right.
But it's like you said, that's not how really relationships are supposed to be. And the reason why I like what you said about trauma and stuff, a lot of us really don't have those examples in a household to really show like how a man and woman are supposed to enact with each other. And I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, marriage and relationships are all supposed to be perfect. You should never argue with your partner at all. I'm not saying you're not going to have disagreements or arguments. I'm not saying other races don't do that at the same time. What I'm saying is there's ways to conduct those arguments. Like, if you feel like you're getting to a point or a boiling point where it's like you want to like physically put your hands on somebody, or you even gonna come out like calling somebody out of name or like verbally abuse them, then it's time to walk away. Somebody gotta leave that room or something, like, yo, I'm going for a walk, or I'm going for a drive. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like a lot of us aren't taught on that level to be emotionally intelligent when it comes to in relationships, because we don't have that in the household to see that for ourselves. So
we're not taught it.
Right,
We're
exactly.
not taught it. When a kid is crying, but especially, I would say, especially male children. Oh, why are you crying? Shut up. You need to be a man, etc. And I know I've heard that for male children. But I know also, little girls are told that too. Oh, you're being too emotional. You're crying too much, etc., etc. But they're kids. This is their first time being here.
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't know. And that's true of adults, but that's especially true of little kids. They didn't choose to be here. 2 adults chose that.
Yeah.
And we often expect little kids to behave as many adults, and they're not. They're not. And so they require us to be better. But a lot of people don't heal themselves before they have children. They don't think, well, maybe the things I experienced as a child, even though my parents were doing the best they can, aren't what I want my kids to experience. They just blindly think, you know what? My parents did it and their parents did it, so I'm going to do it too. You know, and that's not okay. Just because it's been done that way doesn't mean it has to continue that way. Um, and so we often normalize violence within our own households. We normalize screaming matches. As you said, that woman was physically violent with her baby daddy. Like, you know, that's not okay. And it's not something that's new. I think right now, because of the internet and social media, we've seen a rise in like women physically having altercations with their boyfriend, husband, baby daddy, whatever. And, you know, people laugh at it and haha, whatever. Or it's kind of like normalized. But this whole toxic love, toxic relationship thing has always been a thing. I won't say always, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know
It's
what you
not
mean.
something that's just new. It's not something that's happening exponentially more so than in the past. It's just being shown more in the media, and how we respond is what's important. Um, and I think that's what people forget. You know, there's a statistic that I looked up before, and because I was just trying to remember, 1 in 4 female children or females will experience sexual assault between birth and age 18. 1 in 6 boys will experience some form of sexual assault, sexual abuse between birth and age 18. And we have to remember things like sexual assault, sexual abuse are significantly underreported.
Yeah,
So that's just what we know of being reported. But so many people don't know that statistic about boys.
yeah.
And it's in some ways normalized. I had a young man that I was talking to a couple of years back, and we were on a date, and we had been, you know, talking for a couple months, going on dates for a little bit of time. Um, and we were just talking, we were talking about Drake. And I was talking about how there have been some issues with the music artist Drake because people think he sometimes is kind of like a groomer. And you'll see this in rap music a lot, actually. They'll talk about how once she's 18, she's eligible, basically.
Yeah.
And so really the only thing preventing you from being with this girl is that she's not the legal age. But it's not because you don't want her. You still have these sexual fantasies about her. And it's weird when adult people have super close relationships with younger people that aren't like mentory type. You know,
Right.
the grooming is a thing, is my point. Well, anyway, we're talking about grooming, and I was explaining it to him because he didn't know. And basically, I was using the example of like if a teacher like is romantically interested or sexually interested in a student, how they'll groom the student to rely on them, to look at them as a leader, to, you know, view them in this positive light, which makes them more susceptible to this abuse because their teacher's an authority figure, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, long story short, when I was telling him about this and I was using my teacher example, he said, oh, yeah, the lucky ones. So he was saying, oh, a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy whose teacher, male or female, takes advantage of him, abuses him emotionally, sexually, otherwise, is somehow lucky. However, if we reverse that, it said that about a young girl, you know, 14, 15, 16-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl, the reaction would not be the same. He would not have reacted that same way, you know? And so it's easy to see how men are often more susceptible to abuse in some ways because their abuse is viewed as, oh, he's lucky. Oh, You know, his emotions aren't validated. The fact that that's a traumatizing experience to have somebody take advantage of you, someone who you view as an authority, someone who you view cares about you, supposed to take care of you, respect you, and then does that, as somehow they got lucky. It doesn't make sense. But it does make sense why men then don't report things.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to get deeper into that because you bring up a very good point about how why men don't do that. But we're gonna go on our first break, and when we come back, we're gonna go into more detail about it. Okay, we'll be right back, guys. So Imarii, what you were saying earlier about you're touching more onto this the double standards of when it comes to boys and being with an older woman, it's not mostly reported, but when it comes to younger women being with older men, especially when it comes to school settings, people are up in rise on it. And before we went to break, I was about to agree with you because I initially see that a lot. I mean, even when I was younger and stuff like that, if there was an attractive teacher or like somebody I knew had an attractive teacher, I'm like, man, I wish I got to mess with a teacher. I won't say nothing, and stuff like that. But yeah, but at the same time, you don't know that she's kind of abusing you or taking advantage of you. But
It is abuse.
as
It's
yeah,
100%
exactly.
abuse.
So but as younger men, we don't know because at the same time we value, oh, this is gonna be my first time, you know what I'm saying, sex. Because as men, we're taught to like idolize sex or sexual encounters more, especially like when you're young, you know what I'm saying? Your hormones are raging, so it's like, okay, this is gonna be my first time with a woman. I want this to happen. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the reasons why we don't really talk about sexual assault against men, because at the same time, people are gonna look at you like, man, you probably wanted it. What you mean you didn't want sex with her? Did she look good? Man, you
Right.
wanted it then. Come on, man. It don't matter if she looked good or not. If you didn't want it and she forced you to do it, then that's sexual assault. The same way.
And if you're a child, it
Yeah,
doesn't even matter if you wanted it because you don't know what you want. Everything you want as a kid is not good for you. You
true.
want to have cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you cannot because it's not good for you. You know, you're not getting that nutritional value. Just because you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, you're still impressionable. This still is a person of authority or someone who has power over you, taking advantage of that power, regardless if they're your teacher or maybe someone, unfortunately, in your church setting or a person of your community, regardless of their gender, because, you know, it does happen. You know, we hear about the church all the time, like the Catholic priest and other boys, you know, these things happen.
Yes.
It's not a, my lights just flickered. It's not okay. um,
God was like, careful. God was like, be careful what you say.
Stop it. That's horrible. But, you know, people in power take advantage of that power. And that's why abuse, regardless of the type of abuse it is often so much about power. And we don't teach young boys that these things aren't okay to happen to them. And when it does happen to a young boy, they're more likely to, as much as it is pushed under the rug for young girls, because it is, and victim blaming amongst uh, towards women who are abused is so high. It's not like an anomaly. It's really not. We think of it as it is. Oh, you know, it's truly not. But it's even more so with boys because there is that layer of you should be grateful that this happened to you. You should be grateful that someone took advantage of you, that someone abused you, you know? And we don't teach boys that life, like, as great as sex is, it's not, life isn't about that.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing, you know? And so much about becoming a man sometimes that is taught to kids, taught to boys rather, is about sex and sexual encounters.
Yeah.
And you're encouraged to, as young girls, are encouraged to abstain, to wait, to not get taken advantage of. And if you do get taken advantage of, then it's your fault because what were you wearing? What were you doing? How, were you flirting with him? How did that, you know, how did you let yourself become in that situation? While young boys are often taught to look as sexual situations, sexual encounters as a way of becoming a man.
Yeah.
And they're encouraged to have sexual experiences younger. Now we know boys and girls can be having sex at young ages, but the encouragement of it, the literal wording of it from adults to kids, parent figures to kids, community figures to kids is different.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a tragedy, honestly, but it then also makes sense why men don't report,
Exactly.
why boys
I,
don't.
I agree with that. And it's like my thing is like it's kind of hard to teach that domestic violence against men or little boys is kind of bad when we have so many social media or media outlets in general that kind of prove otherwise. That try to make it a joke out of it. Like you look at reality TV. Now we was talking about earlier about how like domestic abuse can be verbal and like people on them arguing back and forth and screaming and shouting at each other is can be a bad thing. But if you look at reality shows like Real Housewives of Atlanta or The Flavor of Love, if you look at shows like that, you see episodes like that every week. And you see how many millions and millions of people view that and be like, "Oh, this is gonna be a good episode." I'm gonna tune in next week. Da 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 da. And like it's like we glorify and idolize that in relationships. So then when we go back to our relationships, we think, oh, that's acceptable, or we think that's normal. So it's like, see, if those high celebrities can do stuff like that and still go back home to each other, then why can't we? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is not how the relationship is supposed to be. Just because your favorite celebrity couple does it doesn't give you the right to do that. And just because they do that doesn't mean that you're going to get out of it the same way. I mean, sure, she can throw a glass bottle at him and cut his face, but she's going to get out of jail because she has a good lawyer and money. Sis, you ain't going to do that and get a slap on the wrist. You
Right.
get what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's kind of back to what we was talking about before. Like I told you about the Amber Heard situation, about her like I'm sitting on the bed and stuff like that, and leaving that on the bed for him. And she said that it was a prank in court and stuff like that because she told that bodyguard, and he confessed that in court, and she just admitted to that. You know how many people when they was like posted that video, you know how many laughing comments were there? Like, oh, I can't believe she did that. She's crazy for that. Da-da-da. Laugh emoji, laugh emoji, laugh emoji. Like people made a joke out of it. But that can be a form of abuse too.
It is abuse.
Yeah.
Abuse. And frankly, it's disgusting.
It's nasty. It's a little
Let's
nasty.
start there. Let's
Yeah.
just, that's foul.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I agree. I would just like to also say the young man who said that that those boys are the lucky ones, he didn't get another date, just so y'all know. Absolutely not.
She had to say that, y'all. She had to put that
I
in
just had to
there.
make sure y'all knew I don't tolerate that type of discussion. I find it like disgusting. However, when I told people about it, people try to justify it. Oh, it's just like a fantasy, whatever. No, you can role play with two consenting adults over 18.
Yeah.
You can role play that, but the fact that you were okay with an actual teacher and an actual student, nah, man. Peace. Absolutely not.
It,
Not
it's
over here.
it's like we was agreeing with before. As like I said before, like when it comes to boys, I feel like we people don't see that as an issue because for us, we kind of idolize having sexual encounters with a woman, and like you said, that's our I don't know, that's part of our progress of becoming men. Because oh, you 14 and you got to have sex with a teacher and stuff like that, or you a real man now. But you don't know that's sexual abuse too. And it's like you can, and it's like you said, as young kids, we're impressionable, so we don't think of it like that. We think of it, man. I remember my first time. I was 14 with a woman that was 40 years old. It's like that. Yeah, but
And,
it's
and
like
then you wonder why you're 20, 30, 40, and you have trust issues.
yeah. Or then wonder why when you get to like your 20s or 30s, why you want to date girls that's younger than you because you thought it was cool because that happened to you.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like a domino effect. This happens to you, then that domino falls over, then that trauma gets passed on, then trauma gets passed on.
Right. And
It's
so
crazy. Go ahead, my bad.
I agree. Um, so what kind of cultural shifts do you think need to take place then before domestic violence and abuse in general committed against men can be taken seriously? Like what type of hard work do we need to do within our communities, within our culture to make that shift where it is now understood that these things happen to men and it's not okay.
This is gonna be simple, but stop trying to downplay it when men talk about it. Because I feel as though I hear a lot of women will be like, "Oh yeah, like, well, if he was going through stuff or he feels that way, then why can't he just open his mouth and say it?" A lot of men do feel that way and do say things like that, but a lot of women look at it as weak or soft when we do talk about that, or it's not unbelievable. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because it's
Yeah.
still, and to this day, it's hard to believe that a woman can really abuse a man physically without him being at fault. Because, like I said before, when it comes to situations like that, if a dude comes into work with a black eye or scratches on his face or something or limping, the first thing you say is like, "Man, what you do?" Stop accusing of like as if he's the one at fault on it. We don't know that situation. We don't know that relationship. So we don't know whose fault it is really. And even if it was a situation where he was like, oh, he was messing around, that still doesn't give you the right to abuse somebody. Because at the end of the day, if I found out a girl I was talking to was texting another dude, I'm still not going to put my hands on her. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the first steps. Another step I feel as though is like make more groups that are like a target for men being abused. Because like you said, I think that you said there are groups that are like that, but I don't think those groups are really talked about enough. I feel
Right.
like they're very quiet because, like I said before, like this is like a situation that's like kept under wraps a lot of times. But the whole thing with Johnny Depp and stuff, this only seen as a big thing because obviously he's a big celebrity. And fun fact, he said himself like his father was being abused himself. So it's like I said before, when I think about the whole domino effect thing, trauma just goes to trauma. It gets passed on to trauma. You get
If
what
you
I'm saying?
It is true that if you come from a situation where domestic violence was normal in your household, you're more likely to be in relationships where domestic violence is occurring because in your formative years, that's what you watched. And that's what you believe is okay. That's also what you believe you deserve
Yeah.
often. People, it's what you expect, you know. Non-toxic, healthy love will feel foreign, will feel unreal because that's all you've experienced. That's all you've had. Um, but I think too though, the only thing is when we say we need to have more men like group focused towards men, I agree. What I've noticed is men often struggle with talking about their emotions,
Yeah.
talking about things that have happened to them, talking about those negative things. Because we as a society, both men and women, have put this pressure on men, and I believe it's because of the patriarchy. Um, you know, but that men can only experience like two emotions. It's anger and happiness, but happiness is less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Men are expected to suppress any emotions that aren't really like anger. That's the only way you're really allowed to show. You know, we all know a guy who acts hard 24/7.
Of course.
You know? But that's because that's what he was taught. How you're supposed to act.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many men who struggle with just saying "I love you" to their partner, to their kids, because they weren't told that.
Yeah.
You know, and their feelings and emotions and experiences as a child weren't validated. So I think it starts at home. A lot of it. We need to become better before we start having these children. And even if you're not fully better, you need to work on it because you're not trying to pass on that trauma to your kids. And trauma doesn't have to be some huge, big negative event. We experience many levels of trauma. So a lot of people, when you hear trauma, they roll their eyes and they're like, oh, whatever, you know. But trauma is more than just physical hitting, you know, and yelling. There's traumatic experiences that you have every day, the little things that just rewire your brain,
Exactly. Fun fact,
or
people.
affect your life.
Exactly. Like fun fact, pressure don't always make diamonds. You know what I'm saying? Because so when we go on talk about hard times or like we talk about traumatic experiences that you go through as a kid, thinking like, well, this is gonna make you stronger. It may make you stronger in some aspects, but at the end of the day, you're still gonna have that mental like dysfunction in your head that what you deal with. And if you're not strong enough to go seek help for that, it's gonna surface onto your own relationship and then you're going to teach it on your kids, and they're going to teach it to their kids, and the cycle goes on and on.
We need to stop even saying like, oh, your trauma made you stronger. No, they made themselves stronger. Their trauma made them weak, and it made them sad, and it made them experience confusion that they did not deserve, especially as a child. What they deserved was to be cared for. What they deserved was to be loved. What they deserved was to be protected. But the adults around them failed that.
Yeah.
Or even if they didn't fail, they were still doing the best that they could with what they knew, And that's not always, you can understand that, but that does not always make it okay. You know what I mean? Like, it just is, you can recognize my parents did the best they could with the information what they had. But that still resulted in me having issues.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily always their fault, but you still live with those things.
Exactly.
And you still have to heal from them. And so I think we need to stop teaching young boys that they deserve to be mistreated. We need to start validating their emotions and their feelings and experiences. We need to stop, if things are happening to them, like sexual abuse or anything of that nature, physical abuse, we need to start having them talk about it. We need to start seeking help for them, and I think there is a shift. But in the past, if you went to therapy, oh wow, like that wasn't a thing. It wasn't an option, especially in the Black community. It was seen as such a negative. And I think we're slowly becoming more aware and accepting of those things. It's not there yet, obviously. There's a lot of work and growth that still need to come. But until we are validating little boys' emotions and feelings and experiences and teaching young boys and girls how to express themselves in a more until we're teaching them emotional intelligence, until we're teaching them that you shouldn't be putting your hands on anyone, period. Yes, self-defense is okay. But at the same time, your first reaction to an uncomfortable situation should never be violence. It should never be physically harming somebody.
Yeah.
And teaching people it's okay to not have power and control in every situation. As humans, that's what we desire. We all want to feel like we have some sort of control over what's going on in our lives. We all want power. But if you're using your power to negatively hurt someone else, you're exerting your power over someone you're supposed to love or who's supposed to love you, then you're using it wrong. Right. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of strong women out there. There are a lot of women who can beat up a man without it being like a big difficult challenge for them. People always think that, like, Steph, I couldn't beat you up. I'm not gonna lie, you look a little swole today.
Yeah, but, you see these guns. I'm playing.
But my point is, there are women who are very strong. There are people who are very strong, and if you're only trying to protect yourself, it's really easy to get beat up. If you're not trying to hurt the other person. And a bat hurts regardless of who's swinging it. A bottle to the head hurts regardless of who is swinging it.
Yeah, thanks.
The idea that women are weak and can't harm a man isn't true. And we need to teach men that it's okay to leave those situations. You don't need to stay with her. And you don't need to explain yourself to anybody else who thinks you did something wrong.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that too, because that was going to be my next point too, because a lot of men have been told that if you want to leave toxic situations like that where a woman is physically abusing them or verbally abusing them, like, yeah, you ain't this, you ain't gonna never be this. A lot of people like, well, you just can't control your woman, or you can't handle her, and be like, and you know how guys, we can have egos, well, I can handle my girl, but you don't have to deal with that. And I feel like a lot of men are told to be put in the toxic situations to show how strong they are or how masculine they are. But it's like, if you don't want to go through abuse, whether that's physical or verbally, you don't have to go through it. And
There's no glory
saying that,
in it.
Yeah, I'm saying that for both sides, but I'm just talking from the man's side because I'm speaking for the side of the man. If you feel like you're getting verbally abused or she's physically putting her hands on you, instead of being like, you know what, yeah, whatever, I ain't gonna pay you no mind, girl, just walk away. Because the last thing you want to do is deal with a situation like that where it just escalates to the next level, and then she keeps hitting you, and then you try to swing back on her that one time, and all of a sudden, when it comes to being in court, she's going to be made out to look like the victim, and all those years of abuse that you went through have been pushed under the rug. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Actually, that's interesting that you bring it up, and you're right, because there's been a lot of talk about reactive abuse
Mm-hmm.
with this Johnny Depp case, because there's a lot of viewpoints that, oh, they were abusing each other, Reactive abuse truly is often what we consider gaslighting.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
good.
and so the abuser is being abusive. They're hitting you, they're verbally abusing you, they're mentally, emotionally, all that type of stuff. Whatever type of abuse they're doing, or combination of whatever. Then the abused person does something that might be considered abusive, but it's really a reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, you were beating me, and so I yelled at you. Or, I pushed you back. And then that's used against them to say, oh, well, you see, I could have stopped doing that, but then you pushed me. Or something of that nature. It's gaslighting. It's a way of emotion, like of manipulating a situation and manipulating the narrative.
Yeah.
Because I had to look that up before this episode, because I was like, I kept hearing this term,
Yes.
and I was like, I don't understand what that means. I don't really know what they're trying to say there.
Yeah, but I knew what it mean, but I feel I forgot to say it. I didn't really, how something just goes past your head when you're thinking about it. But that's a good term that you brought up, because I feel like we do that a lot in relationships. Because like I said before earlier, like the push buttons. You know what I'm saying? Like and then when a first person swing, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where did that come from? You know where it came from. You get what I'm saying? You know that damn tequila bottle that you threw at me at the wall. You knew where that came from. So it's just like, I have a question.
Okay.
But you was going to say something?
No, you're good.
Okay, so I have a question. So with this whole Amber on her thing situation, like, let's say everything that Johnny Depp says is true. You know what I'm saying? Let's say this whole thing, turns out that everybody's on his side, and everything, all the abuse that she was doing was correct. She was physically and verbally abusing him, right? If she gets proven guilty of this, do you think people are really gonna have the same reaction?
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I know at the beginning of this, when these allegations of abuse first came out, it definitely seemed like she was the one being abused, because I remember there was all the posts about it. And then slowly, as information has come out, there's been a lot more discussion of how she was abusing him. And like I said, we don't know the situation. I'm not going to judge it, because regardless, abuse is wrong. So if he was abusing her, that's wrong. If she was abusing him, that's wrong. But what I also know is she is a wealthy, attractive, white woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Enough said. I don't think her repercussions will be the same, if any. Now, that being said, like I've said before, people who are in court for domestic violence often do not get punishment. They often do not get jail time. It's hard to prove, just like sexual assault is hard to prove, even though it happened. And the bias of the jurors often can conflict with it. So you can know there can be all the proof in the world, but if the person has a certain look, has a certain whatever, it often isn't taken as seriously. So they'll get off, and they might just get, oh, you got to do some community service. Oh, you have to take a class. I don't know what's going to happen with if Amber Heard is proven to be guilty and to be the abuser. I don't know what type of repercussions she might get. But I know how attractive white women, especially attractive white women with wealth, are often treated in our country.
Mm.
and so they often get a pass.
Exactly.
Conventionally attractive people, man or woman, especially if they're white, often get a pass. Um, and that's also a hard situation because men who report abuse often aren't listened to, often aren't taken seriously. They often don't even make it to court. Like, this is rare, in my opinion. Like, often they're just told to suck it up, regardless of if it's another man who's abusing them, or a woman. Because even in like heterosexual relationships, a man accusing their partner, who is also a man, of abuse isn't taken seriously. And then it just has the layer of they're gay, so like people aren't as caring. Because I know somebody who had an altercation with a partner at a bar, and the police were called, and they were both gay, and the police didn't care. They shrugged them off. Nothing was pursued. And so I just think it's important, or rather, I just think it's like, I can see it's common for abuse of men to not get repercussions. I think if it's happening, you should have those repercussions, obviously. Like, if jail time is the answer, jail time is the answer. Whatever, it shouldn't matter the person's gender. If you are committing wrong, if you're committing an atrocity against another person, the consequences should still be the same, regardless of if you're white, regardless of if you have a higher socioeconomic status, whatever. But do I think she's really going to get any like repercussion besides she might lose some movie deals for a couple of years? No.
Yeah.
Nowhere. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Because I heard, like, I don't know if you saw the movie Aquaman. She was one of the main characters in that movie. And when this whole stuff was happening, especially when the recorders and stuff like that was signed with Johnny Depp was happening, people were signing petitions to get her removed from Aquaman 2. That's coming out, I think, either this year or next year. And they were saying, like, yeah, she needs to be removed. Otherwise, we're going to boycott. First of all, people are still going to see Aquaman 2. Especially, I know people are going to see him for Jason Momoa. So let's stop acting like we're not going to see Aquaman 2. Second, it's like you said before. She's rich, she's white, and she's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So either way, she's going to be a big asset in Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she's not going to get a few movie deals for the year or two, maybe, but sooner or later she's going to be up and booming again. It just is what it is.
Well, I agree. And Hollywood doesn't care about abuse. They help cover it up. They are very much aware of the issues that their actors and singers and all these other artists commit.
Yeah.
There's so many people who have credible allegations of sexual abuse, pedophilia, domestic violence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet their platforms haven't been taken from them. Their awards haven't been taken from them. They weren't banned from the Oscars for 10 years.
Uh-oh. Here it is. Go back to that Will. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There are people like Woody Allen.
Yeah, or Harvey Weinstein.
But nothing was taken away from them, and these things were said about them for years.
Exactly.
Multiple credible allegations, and so that's why I think we just don't value violence. Like, we don't value the person who is hurt by violence.
Yeah. We only value it until it affects us, until it's at our doorstep. Then it's like, oh, maybe we need to take this seriously. Because like I said before, this whole thing with Johnny Depp is sad, but it's not surprising. But I'm glad that him being at a certain social status is bringing awareness to it. I get it, and I appreciate it for us to have this conversation. We have it now, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, what are we going to do about it to make it better? Like the question you posed to me, and it's like I said before, it's like, if we can do little things about stop telling men not to talk about situations, and then when they do, try to say that they're weak, we can have more groups that talk about this for men that are surrounded by older men or men that actually go through this stuff to be able to talk about it to other men, especially in the Black community.
Right.
Go ahead.
And if more men start reporting the violence that they are experiencing, wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because so many men don't report. So many men don't let the world know what's happening. It's easy to push it under the rug.
Yeah.
But if more men reported what was going on, eventually people would start taking it more seriously. You know? And I think that would help things too. At first, you're going to be turned away. Don't get it twisted. It's not going to be easy. But the more persistent it becomes, the more, you know what? No, we're not going to give her a pass just because she's a woman or because they're whatever. Is, I think, would benefit so many men, would benefit so many people, regardless of gender. You know, I just think the more that is reported, the more that it's talked about, the more support groups that are created, the more vocal people become against both domestic violence, sexual assault, etc., the better our society will become, because it's harder to hide.
Yes.
It's harder for people who experience these things to feel shame and not get the help they deserve. And it becomes less normal for abusers to get away with it and to feel like they are like a protected class in some ways.
I agree, 100%. More of the story, people. Domestic violence is wrong on both sides. More of the story. If you feel like you get to a point in an argument with somebody or your partner where you got to put their hands on them physically, it's time to question it and say, is this worth it? Or it's time to walk away. You know what I'm saying? And that's something I've even been taught as a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you get to the point where you feel like you got to put your hands on somebody, just walk away from the situation. Just walk away. No need to keep on staying there and argue and escalate the conversation for another 2 hours. Just walk away and take a breather. Everybody need to take a little reset button here and there in relationships. You know what I'm saying? So, and this is something that I feel like we need to discuss more about, especially against men or and women in general. But a lot of men need to be comfortable to be able to talk about this more, so that way it doesn't get swept under the rug, and we don't have to wait for another celebrity to go through the same thing Johnny Depp is going through for us to start caring about it.
Right, because thousands of men experience it, and thousands, if not millions, and millions of women experience it. So it's not okay, you know, because, and victim blaming isn't okay. We do a lot of that towards everyone, you know, anyone who's experiencing some sort of violence. It always is a question of, well, what did they do? Doesn't matter what they did.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if dinner was late. It doesn't matter if they made you mad. It doesn't matter if the house wasn't clean. No one deserves to be mistreated.
Thanks. That's all I got about this episode. But before we go, you did say that you had like certain hotlines for people to call that are going through these situations.
Yes. So if you live in the Erie area, and you are experiencing violence, that whether it be sexual assault, domestic violence, robbery, etc., you can reach out to the Crime Victim Center of Erie. They have a 24-hour hotline, and their number is 814-455-9414. And you can receive help there. Additionally, if you live in the Philly area, you can call the 24-hour Philadelphia Domestic Violence Hotline. Their number is 866-723-3014. It is put together by and operated by the Women Against Abuse. And then lastly, nationally, there is a hotline for it. So you can always go to thehotline.org, and they have their numbers there. They have a live chat function. You can also text START to the number 88788, and get the help you need and find out about what resources are available to you within your community and get out of those situations. And if you've already experienced abuse and just need help finding a therapist or help finding, resources to help you after abuse, these same hotlines can help you there as well.
Okay. And you want to just make clear, in Erie, PA, right?
So the first one, the Crime Center Victims of Erie, is in Erie. And then there is a 24-hour hotline for Philadelphia as well.
Okay.
And then there's the national one. So I gave all three.
Okay. Just making sure they know the actual where area is at, because some people just don't know where it's in Pennsylvania. Just making sure.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been another episode of Millennial Dungeon. And I go by Steph. And also, I just want to point out, guys, drive safely out there. Don't no need to rush and cause your own safety and safety of others, okay? I'll go by the name of Steph. And
I'm Afropuff, also known as Imarii. Going into this week, everyone, be kind. In Spanish, they say, sea amable. Be kind, everyone. You don't know what other people are going through and what they've experienced.
okay. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Yeah. Ergo.